First thing is I start off every meeting talking about our opioid problem that we have. And one of the things that I want to talk about that I wanted to announce is one of the things that I have been trying to do is to get our drug education program in our curriculum. And school director and I had worked on this, and it's going to be rolled out, and I'm excited about that we're going to be included in the curriculum, and it rolls out in fall of 2020. So I wanted to bring that out. Let's get to the agenda. First thing is the approved minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I have read over the minutes. They are in our iPads. So anybody like to look through those? I didn't find anything. I'd like to move that we approve those minutes.
We got a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let's move on to the next. Number 2 on the agenda, we're going to announce a vacancy for the alternate for the beer board. And on the 3rd, we had 4 openings for Agriculture Advisory Board. We had 3 applicants. They are Shanto Sereno, Joe Gurley, and Phyllis Ferguson. Are any of them here? All right. We want to need to vote on those 3, and we still have 1 opening, so we'd like to announce 1 opening vacancy for the Agriculture Advisory Board. Do I have a motion to on these 3 applicants?
Mr. Chairman, I'd move to approve these 3.
Oh, we got second? Any discussion?
I have a question. So when were these applications turned in?
To my understanding, and Rachel probably can answer this better, I know Phyllis Ferguson just turned it in, but the other 2 have been in for like a week after our last meeting.
And the applications are online. You can check the dates on them.
Well,
Yes.
I just looked at them. I saw one was turned in today from Joe Gurley, and then the other lady, I don't. And I asked because back in March we passed a policy that said you had to turn an application at least a week before our steering committee meeting.
That is true.
And so if we violate the policy on this one, the next time there's something contested or there's a problem, they're going to refer back to this and say you violated your rule there. So.
Okay, well, I'm going to take, Commissioner Stevens is right. What I suggest we do is we'll vote on Commissioner Sereno and approve him, and then we'll move the other 2 to the next meeting.
Defer to next meeting.
Yes.
Well, our policy that we passed said that the commission could vote by either majority or 2, I think it's majority vote to allow an applicant to be heard there on the floor.
Talking about in the county commission.
I think that's what we said was a majority vote. So they can be brought up there, but if we
That'll
bend
be
the rules
fine.
here, it's gonna create a problem.
Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, let me just remove my motion.
Okay. Commissioner Irvin, remove your second.
Motion.
So the clarification is to defer and or I guess these people can be brought up before the full commission.
Yes, sir. We can vote on Commissioner Shanto
Right.
today on this right now, and then we can defer the other 2 to the county commission meeting in Thursday of next week, and let the commission vote on them.
Hopefully we have another applicant.
Yes.
Yes.
I would make that motion.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? The motion is to approve Commissioner Santo and have the other 2 applicants go before the county commission on Thursday. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next thing on our list is to elect Bob Ashbury and Francis Mosby for the Correctional Work Center. So your applications are on their applications are on your iPad. So do we have a motion?
I think we have the same situation here. One of the applicants was turned in on November 30th.
Okay. What we need to do is, we have a rule where you can't apply for a week. So we'll be in the same situation here. So do we have a motion to bring this to the county commission main meeting?
I believe only one falls
It's
outside.
only one.
Only one.
Miss Mosby is level 8.
She's
I'll make a motion that we recommend Ms. Mosby to the commission.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor approving Ms. Mosley, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now I need a motion. Do we move Mr. Ashbury to the main meeting on Thursday?
Somebody would have to stand up and nominate it.
Well, yeah, and Asbury is, I look at the application, he's a reappointment. So he or maybe a representative, I guess, just needs to stand up and say, would like to be reappointed.
That's fine.
That would suffice.
The same goes for the last two from the prior motion you made. That's what the import from y'all was, I believe.
Yes. Have we got any questions? Let's move on. I'd like to announce 4 vacancies for the PBA board. Now let's go to appointment. On your agenda, it says appoint Daniel Gammon and Donna Barrett to the Central Tennessee Region Solid Waste Planning Board. Daniel Gammon has withdrawn his name. He will no longer be considered, but Ms. Barrett is here. To tell y'all a little bit about this is the Solid Waste TDEC Regional Authority. It's been established since 1992. The mayor under Tennessee Code can appoint 3 people, and it's made up of 8 counties, and they meet quarterly. Basically, they approve some of their job descriptions. They approve closing and opening of landfills. They meet every quarter, and one of our board members is Mac Nolan. He will remain. The other one was Grant Kelly. He is withdrew for health, and Mimi Kiesling is no longer serving. So we have 2 openings, but we have Ms. Barrett here today to and for us to approve. Ms. Barrett is just as a personal. She's been very helpful to me in waste management. She's very knowledgeable. She's been doing this since Nancy Allen days, so she's, in my opinion, a very good choice. Now, Ms. Barrett, I'd like you, if you'd like to speak to the commission, you're more than welcome to say something.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commission members, thank you so much for your time and letting me speak tonight. As I informed the chairman, for those of you that weren't on the commission way back when, this is an issue that I championed back during my early days in the General Assembly, back when we started with the radioactive waste issue. And even that was during Ms. Allen's term. Even during that time, I was looking for solutions for our solid waste issue. Most all of you accompanied us to the Sevierville location when we looked at that option there. So I've had a vested interest in this, and I want to continue to be a part of finding the solution, whatever it is. And I think this may be one of the opportunities to serve in that role and take the 20 years worth of research I've done and apply it not just to the county we have here, but to at least the 8 counties and maybe even further with that. So with your blessings, I'd love the opportunity to serve in this capacity.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Do I have a motion to approve Ms. Barrett to the board?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Commissioner McAdoo? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Ms. Barrett.
Thank you, I think.
All right, next thing on the agenda. Next thing on our agenda is update our public comments policy. I've given you a copy of this. It's also on your iPad. And this was brought up some of the commissioners. And one of the things that we wanted to talk about is number 1, and I will read it. Visitors may request to speak at county commission meetings by having their names placed on a sign-in form by 4:30 p.m. on the date of the commission meeting in the county executive's office. The visitor's name and subject matter will be listed on the sign-in form. So commissioners, and me included, we want to discuss number 1 going from 4:30 to 24 hours. to give us as commissioners time to address anything that comes up instead of just throwing us at the last minute. So, is there I want to open up discussion on this, so if there's anything anybody wants to say, let me know. Or anything else on this thing. It says at the bottom, our public comment policy will be reviewed after 4 months. It hasn't been reviewed in 8 years. So this is something that we want to look at and address, and so I'd ask for any discussion or any motions. Floor is open.
I have a question for Rachel.
Yes, sir.
Rachel, when is the final agenda to be out in the public? How many hours, days are
Well,
it to be?
there's no, that I've been told, no final as far as that goes. For instance, with commission, sometimes it's, if there's certain things to get uploaded, it's almost to the last minute.
We amend all.
And then on these, to add something, we have on Vicky's calendar prior to me taking the position, it was a week to, 5 days ahead, to get things in, to try to have some sort of organization.
So it's fair to say that a minimum 5 days, the agenda is set.
Right.
And available to the public for view.
Right.
Okay. All right. So then my question is there something you can cite that causes an alarm for you to want to move this to 24 hours?
Yes, sir, Commissioner. One of the things that I worry about is that when we have some controversial subjects come up, which we were not prepared for, and then people come in and want it to be 4 or 5 people come in and want to speak, and then they defer their time, and then we're looking at 3 minutes, now we're looking at 15 minutes. So all I simply want to do, I'm not saying they can't do that, but I'd like to have a 24-hour so that as commissioners, we can address any concerns they have or be able to answer any questions they may have of us. But I also think that we need to start reviewing this and approving this, like it says, for us to approve it every 4 months, and we just let it go. And if there's any questions, I'll be more than glad to answer for you. But my simple is I want to discuss what you thought about changing it to 24-hour notice.
Mr. Chairman, one other thing on there, it says county executive's office, it's county mayor's office now that you need, since you're doing updating, you might make that change as well. I know it's pretty insignificant, but it's county mayor's office now, not county executive.
What time do we close?
4:30.
4:30? So if someone show up 4:30 on the dot or whatever, when you get ready to walk out the office, you meet them coming out the door, are you still going to accept that form?
We're supposed to, from what it was prior listed.
The only thing about possibly if you did it, put 24 hours or say 1 day before, it also mentions there in number 5, the commission chairman will have the discretion to look over the names of visitors who have spoken in the past in order to accommodate visitors who have never spoken. If you have at 4:30, possibly whoever the chairman is at the time will not have the opportunity to do so in relationship to this. If there's, for some reason there's a rush of names that come in, if there's something particular issue that's coming up and there's a lot of people want to speak, I look at that you might want to look at. I mean, I think in any given organized effort to try to accommodate the citizens of the county, when you say something right at the last minute, that's sort of putting a pressure there that may not accommodate everybody. Not saying that we haven't been doing that in the past, but you never know what the future may be, and we haven't run into that. One thing I wanted to just emphasize in here that I looked at and saw I noticed we go through here and all the way through it, we mention at the very beginning up here, we talk about public comment policy for the citizens of Rutherford County, and then we go down through here and we call them visitors. I think, if anything, we change that back where we've got visitors, we call it citizens, because of the fact that that's who they are. They're the citizens of Rutherford County, and that's what they're speaking about, considering the issues that we have here. This resolution that we have here explaining what this comment period is all about, I think it needs to be available for whoever is out there thinking about wanting to make public comment. They need to know some of the content of what we're talking about here and what it does say. Fact of 3 minutes, that this is intended to be a public comment policy and not a question and answer policy. We should place that on there. I looked at some rules and regulations and resolutions of other organizations that have public comments this afternoon when I saw this on our agenda, and just pulled theirs up just to see how we compared. We're very close to everyone else. One thing that they did put on there, I noticed that might be we might be needing to look at. When this was done back in 2001, I don't believe we were doing television at that time. And now we do television. And what I was seeing on these other comments was there shall be no personal attacks made on anyone. And I thought, now that we're on television, we might ought to be, maybe that would be something we could add to that number 2 there to avoid that situation. But that was primarily the main things I saw within this. And maybe we take an opportunity in the future to look at the review policy a little more often.
Mr. Mayor?
Maybe also look at using that as an opportunity for someone running for election. You may want to consider that as well, that not be allowed to get up and lay out their whole platform because it is a public comment, so it needs to be a little bit more defined as what they're using that for.
Also, we had an incident a couple of months ago where this gentleman came up discussing cemeteries and found out after he discussed it a couple of times,
It was a city
at the wrong meeting.
Yeah.
So therefore, we probably do need a time frame where whatever they want to talk about can be discussed and make sure they're at the right place and doing what they want to do. But I remember that distinctly. After he gave his public comment, you remember, then he came back up there and wanted to rebuttal and talk about conflicts and find out at the end that he was at the wrong meeting.
He was also from out of town.
He was also out of town.
So do you want to limit it to?
We need the time frame,
Yeah.
per se, so you can investigate and see what each individual wanted to
He
discuss.
was representing somebody out of Massachusetts or
Somewhere,
someplace.
I don't know where.
He came, so should they come in and fill out a form and say what they want to speak on? That could have saved him some embarrassment. I know he was embarrassed when he found out that he was at the wrong meeting.
Well, as far as I feel on this matter, I think you have a right to be heard. I think you should be heard. But I also, speaking for myself, I want to be prepared. And I want to be able to, it's not an answer and question, but if somebody accuses us of something, I want to be able to defend ourselves. And I don't want somebody to just keep constantly, like you said, somebody running for office for 3 minutes, getting up there and telling their platform. But I think 24 hours, Mr. Mayor, is more than enough to give you time.
If you had them, instead of just, how do they do it now, Rachel? They call in or do they have to come in and fill it?
Either way. There's
Okay.
a sheet that
So-
has the date, their phone number, address, and
But
their
they're not
name.
required to say what they want to speak about,
They have just,
right?
there's one little block that says, what's your topic? And they can say
Okay,
whatever.
so what if they were, say, some radical or white supremacist or something that wanted to speak? Do we allow that? I guess it's freedom of speech, but I guess still at the same time, the commission has the ability to determine what comes before its own body.
Well, I want to do these separately, so do I have a motion to change it from 4:30 the day of to 24-hour notice?
24-hour notice would be 6 o'clock.
No motion, all right?
I'll make that motion.
You make a motion? Second, Steve Irvin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Noes? Let's see, I'm gonna do a roll vote on this. No, it's 24-hour notice for 4:30. Just 24-hour notice the next day. It's 24 hours the next day. So I'm gonna do a roll on this one. Go ahead.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Kusch?
No.
Commissioner McAdoo?
No.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
No.
Commissioner Rather? Oh, he's absent, I'm sorry. Commissioner Harris?
Yes. 3-3.
33.
Chairman breaks it.
No, it failed.
No, it's a tie.
It's just a tie.
That's the time.
Can't vote twice.
Yeah, Stacy.
All right.
So let me ask a question. If we're gonna, I'm in agreement that maybe this resolution needs to be cleaned up a little bit in terms of brought up to the 2020s and not 2001. I think we need to have the applicant expound more on what their topic needs to be, what they want to talk about. Because whether we give them 2 hours or 24 hours prior to a meeting, if they don't tell us what they're going to talk about, what is best for us to investigate, right? We can't read their mind. So we need to know what they want to talk about. And that should just pertain to Rutherford County business. It doesn't need to be about anything else going outside of this county. And if they want to go off on a tangent, then we should have the right to not allow them to come up and speak if it doesn't pertain to Rutherford County.
Okay.
So is that in a motion, Commissioner Kusch?
Why, sure it is.
All right. So we have a motion to expand on reasons for speaking.
Topic details.
Yep, topic details.
And while we're doing that, I would suggest that we make the amendment, as Steve pointed out, about the correction as we address the mayor's office, and also change visitors to citizens.
We do that as a separate motion.
Oh, sure we can. Okay.
Right now, we got a motion to expand the topic detail. Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Reed?
May I
So I've got
interject
some-
real quick too after Robert? Go ahead.
So I've got some questions. I think when we start limiting what people can talk about and putting restrictions on that, somebody's going to choose, yes, you can talk about this, no, you can't. I think you've got a First Amendment issue. The last thing we want to do is tell somebody you can't talk about your topic and then us getting some kind of federal lawsuit for somebody that's looking to,
I don't think we're saying that.
Well-
I don't think we're saying that at all. I think what we're doing is just expanding instead of a box. We're still, going a little bit more detail on what they want to talk about.
but what if they tell us they're going to talk about that and then they talk about something different?
I mean, it's a good point, but I don't know how to answer your question on that.
Are you, Robert, are you concerned about my comment about that it's just Rutherford County business, or?
I think if you start putting censorship on things, you can talk about this, or and we aren't sure, we're not going to allow this because it might be controversial or something like that. You're just asking for somebody to go off and find a law firm to file a lawsuit against us for free speech.
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess I'm just thinking if somebody wants to come in and bash Washington and the president and has nothing to do with county business, why?
Oh,
why do we need
I
to?
understand, but censorship is a very dangerous thing if we start going down that road.
Yeah.
I don't get your words. We're not saying it's censor at all. We're just simply saying that if you want to speak on something, it's a little bit more expanded. I don't think we're talking about censor. You have a right to speak. Everybody gets to speak.
But what if it's not a Rutherford County issue?
Well, I mean, that could be a good point on that. What do you?
Yeah, just building on that, if the county is going to give an open public forum for people to speak, which it's done and it looks like it wants to continue doing, under its public comment policy, you need to be very careful of restricting the content of the speech. When it comes to organizing time, place, and manner restrictions, those are generally upheld if they're reasonable. So you have here, 3 minutes, a limit, the time of which it's got to be done. You're regulating those aspects of it, but when you get into the discretionary aspect of who can say what, as long as it's not inciting violence is a big thing there. Generally, you cannot restrict stuff like that. And Section 1 already has on it that the visitor's name and subject matter will be listed on the sign-in form, so they should have to list their subject matter, but when you get into not allowing people to speak because of the content of it, you do run the risk of a potential First Amendment violation.
All right, I will withdraw my motion.
Motion withdrawn. Read.
Now, if it's an issue of deferring time from one person to the next, I can look into that. In other words, you're one individual, you have 3 minutes. You can't defer your time to the same individual if you're a second person. If that's something that you want to put in here, I can certainly look at that for the legalities of that.
That person wasn't even approved to speak last month.
Yeah, look into that. Let's
They didn't even sign up.
let's deal with this right here on it. Do I have a motion to replace visitors with citizens?
I'll make a motion we do that, and that we change county executive to county mayor.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it. Am I the only seconder around here tonight?
Seems like it.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes. And that's to change the,
Changing visitors
to
to
citizens and then
citizens?
the executive's office to mayor.
Yes. Any discussion?
Well, that's a good policy, but who's going to prove that they're citizens?
That was my question, is can nobody, excuse me, Chairman, can nobody from any other county come? I mean, are we going to have visitors from other places that may come in and want to speak to this commission? I mean, I think so. It may be dealing with
The
Rutherford County
resolution
business.
says the citizens of Rutherford County.
That's
I
what
agree,
it-
that's what it says, but who's going to prove it? I can come up here and say, hey, I live on, I've been staying here for 50 years. I might tell you that, but is it true? Are you going to show voter's registration card or driver's license or some type of identification that you stay in Rutherford County?
Mr. Chairman, may I interject again? Keep in mind that your resolution as written restricts the comment period to 30 minutes. Now, of course, in a given commission meeting, the commission can always extend that by a majority vote in the session itself. But if you run into the problem, which at least since I've been doing this, you haven't, to where you're running over that 30 minutes, those that are at the end of the line that haven't spoken yet, they would get bumped to the next commission meeting anyway. So that way, regardless of whether they're visitors or citizens, you're giving them the ability to speak. It just would be moved to a different time. So you might not really need to amend it to say citizens. You probably should just leave it visitors.
We have a motion on the floor. Any discussion on this motion? Do I need to repeat it?
Maybe the word needs to be speakers.
Can you tell me how they passed this the first time?
I think it was back there and when these were put on the wall.
Yeah, it's back in 2001, it's 18 years ago. It's not
You all were having an issue with the Ten Commandments.
Right.
That a lot of people wanted, even from out of the county, they wanted to come.
Oh, out of county, out of country,
Out of
out of
state.
everything.
And Bible Park. Bible Park was another, took a lot of time.
I'll make a motion that we defer this to the next month's meeting so we can think about it.
I'll second that motion. No, you didn't have to second that.
Well, thank you.
You got a motion to defer to next month. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Let's move on. Next thing is Infrastructure Committee report. Commissioner Kusch.
We are moving along swimmingly. The two things that we'll be bringing to the commission, full commission for consideration will be a wheel tax discussion and a mineral severance tax increase discussion. And more, stay tuned tomorrow night at Public Works Commission for that. Those are the two things that we can immediately put into play. The rest will require private act and public act changes and alterations.
Have you had any meetings with our state legislators?
No, sir.
Great.
We're still waiting on some legal decisions on what is legal that we could do before we have a sit down with them.
Anybody have any questions? Commissioner Kusch?
No, sir. Thank you.
All right, move on. On your iPad, you have a list of litigation. Do you have any questions? All right, we'll move on. Other business. Do we have any other business? Commissioner Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of things, very difficult topics, and this is not a pleasant discussion to have, and it's certainly not one that I want to be bringing forward. And it's a business, it's not a personal matter. But there's been a great amount of our population that has concerns about Mayor Ketron. And I don't know about you all, but everywhere I go, that's what people want to ask about. And we don't have answers, which is the problem. We can't calm anybody's concerns without any information. And this issue is not going away. And the people are now starting to question our integrity and honesty for not trying to get to the bottom of this or get answers or do something. And I'm tired of getting assaulted by people that are accusing us of not doing anything. And so I wanted to ask our attorney tonight, is there anything that we can do? What are our options?
All right, I'll tell you what, this is what I want to do. Commissioner Stevens, you have the floor. You can ask any questions that you want. Commissioner Nick, come to the table if you don't mind. I want to do this where you have the floor, and then Nick, you can make any comments that you want. Mr. Mayor, if you want to make any comments, you can, and then this committee will discuss. Is that good with everybody? Go ahead, Commissioner Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Christiansen, I've done some research myself, very limited, and I'm sure that you've done quite a bit too since you got asked to come tonight. But I was wanting to know, what options does the commission have if there's somebody that is under like an investigation or somebody that the commission would like to ask to step aside? Is there anything legally that this body can do? I think it'd be really important for the people to hear what our options are because they're very limited.
Are you talking about Mayor Ketron in his capacity as the county mayor or in his capacity as the chairman of the county commission?
Well, both. It's two separate offices.
Okay. And the direct question is there anything that the county...
What can a commission do in this type of situation? What are our options?
And I'm asking a question of questions I'm trying to understand too, so and I might have to go and look at some of this stuff. There's a lot of facts that go into this analysis, okay? What's the end result that a county commission or commissioner wants? And by knowing that, I would know if there are possible means to achieve that desired result.
Well, you've got a lot of folks out there that want a resignation, and we can't terminate any elected official. That's not an option. The commission or a city council can't just, fire someone. That's not something that we're authorized to do. That's my understanding. Is that correct?
I think so. I think that's correct in what you're saying. Is what you're saying that the county commission cannot make Mayor Ketron resign from his mayor position or the chairman position?
Correct.
I believe that's correct. You cannot make him resign.
And so I think that's really important for our constituents to hear because that's what a lot of them want us to do. But that's not something that we can do. That's my understanding.
I believe that's correct.
Now, what about ouster lawsuits?
I don't know. I haven't looked at that, okay, in detail. The county was involved somewhat tangentially with an ouster lawsuit involving the sheriff a few years ago. That was somewhat unaffiliated with the county because it was brought by certain residents. My understanding, at least from a 30,000-foot view, is that the county commission cannot bring an ouster proceeding. But with the mayor as a constitutional officer, and I think you alluded to this, in his position as the chairman of the commission, which was elected by the county commission, that also is a constitutional office. So both the county mayor position and his role as a chairman, as being constitutional offices, the only way to remove him is through an ouster proceeding.
Or if somebody's indicted, or is it they're found guilty of a felony?
Yeah, I have not looked, I said, into detail about the facts or the elements of an ouster proceeding. That's not something I've looked into detail. You asked about the desired result of that, and I think that the way that that a person would go about achieving that would be an ouster proceeding.
And as I read the statute, that an ouster lawsuit can be brought by county attorney, the district attorney, or 10 citizens, but not the county commission. So that's another thing that I want our constituents to hear, is that we can't vote to initiate an ouster lawsuit. It has to be brought by the county attorney upon some kind of a complaint, the district attorney, or 10 citizens can gather in like they did with the former sheriff.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's correct or not. I mean, you've looked at it, so that might be the way it's gone about. I've never myself been involved in an ouster proceeding. The county attorney's office, we work with the mayor on a day-to-day basis, so at least in regards to myself or our office in general, that's not something that we would be involved in. If the county commission desired to hire outside counsel to serve on behalf of or in relation to the county attorney's office to bring that proceeding, that would be the county commission's desire, but that's not something that I impartially could be part of.
And can the commission do a resolution asking Mayor Ketron to step aside or resign if it comes to something like that?
You've been on the commission longer than I've been the county attorney. Did that happen with Sheriff Arnold? I think the county commission brought a resolution or a motion to ask that he resign. I think that you could. I don't think that there'd be any real legal effect to that, because, like I said, it doesn't mean anything. It's just you're asking him to do that.
So it's more of a symbolic thing.
There's no legal
effect
import to it. That's correct.
So are there any other options or details that you're aware of that we can tell our constituents when they ask us questions about this?
Again, there may be. I haven't looked into all this in detail, but to my knowledge, I'm giving you what I know off the top of my head now.
Done?
That's my questions for now.
Would you like to say anything?
No, sir.
Mr. Mayor, would you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Stevens, the last probably year and a half since I've been elected to this position, over 20,000 citizens of this community. Two things come to mind. One is your in-depthness in the practice of your profession as an attorney. I think you're a very intelligent young man. When I used to pick you up at McDonald's and take you to Nashville when you were going to law school, I thought you had a bright future. But I don't think that you're not a smart person. I don't think that you're not a smart attorney. But I think that your ego is larger than your physical or your mental capabilities. Because your quest for power and wanting to be appointed as opposed to being elected, you want to try me in social media as opposed to going through the courts. You as an attorney know that this case with my company and my daughter is in court, and I can't say anything, and you know that. But you're trying to try me in the court of public opinion. That's all I have to say.
Well, I would like to respond to that since I was personally attacked. And by the way, if you have personal attack or intimidation, just go ahead and do it all at once. That seems to be the go-to thing. And they've done that for 9 years. It hasn't changed anything I've thought. No intimidation scares me. I'm not going to back off my questions for my constituents. I understand you don't have to answer. That's your right. But this isn't a lawsuit. This isn't a criminal matter. This isn't a civil matter. This is a confidence matter. And we've got a significant amount of people out there that are questioning the confidence and questioning the integrity. What do we tell them?
I don't think 22,000 people have called you.
Well, I'm not sure that I've gotten that many phone calls either, but, you know.
Hold on,
there's-
Mr. Mayor, let him talk, and then I'll be glad to recognize you. Go ahead.
But it's just much more complex than it was back in July when these issues started arising. And our constituents are trying to get us to do something, and there's not much we can do. I mean, there's just not. But it needs to be talked about and addressed because it is becoming a distraction for us. So,
I don't have anything else to say at this point, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any discussion with commissioners? Mr. McAdoo?
Well, first of all, maybe I don't live in Rutherford County because I ain't had any constituents call me, but that's fine. If anybody got any complaints and they saying these constituents, these people or whatever, I wish they put names with them because I have no idea of where you're coming from. That's number one. Number two, the state and the local county went through a lot of trouble to form an ethics committee. So I think that if anything come up against each one, should go through that ethics committee. When we discussed the sheriff, it went through that ethics committee. We hired an attorney to look into those issues. The only thing I'm saying, if we got all these complaints, these people complaining or whatnot, just tell them to file it with the ethics committee. You know, I look at it that we have two systems. We have a judicial system and we have a political system. So don't ask me to make decisions on the judicial system because I wasn't elected to make those decisions. That's the reason we formed the ethics committee. So I myself personally think not only this issue, other issues, there's been other issues that go through the ethics committee. I think it should go through the ethics committee myself.
can I respond to that? I don't think the ethics committee has jurisdiction over things that aren't related to conflicts of interest. It's very narrow in what its scope is. I'm not sure it would have any kind of influence over this. The thing back when the sheriff was a discussion was that they were misusing the office for personal gain. And so that was brought to the ethics committee, and that was something that they had jurisdiction over. But I don't think that this situation falls into that.
So how would you classify this situation?
But it's a confidence issue.
Confidence or conflict or?
I'm not sure, but it's a conflict like that would fall under an ethics committee.
So you're asking us to make a judicial decision?
No, we're not a jury.
I know. So the only thing I can look at is the political system.
Well, sure. I mean,
Okay.
we've got a cloud over us.
That's all I want. And since you brought up my names, do you have a list of these names of people that are asked in?
Oh, I can give you some names,
in
sure.
districts? Because normally you have to do a petition, bring it up, whatever. But, you know, if you got a petition going on that you can present to us, or
A petition for,
doing whatever you want to do, you know, these complaints from your constituents. The reason I say that, I represent the 18th district and they hadn't called me. Maybe they called everybody else, but I want to specifically put out there that they haven't called that McAdoo. You know, I don't want my name tied to that constituents have been calling me or whatnot, because they haven't. And that's, you know, I want to take my name away from that, you know. So that's the reason I specifically say you need probably name, districts or whatever, but just don't throw all 21 commissioners, well, don't throw Adam McAdoo in there. The others can do what they want to, you know, because ain't nobody contacted me.
Anybody else? Do we have a motion?
Well, I'm going to make a motion that we send a resolution to the full commission and ask Mayor Ketron to take a leave of absence until the issues are resolved.
Do we have a second? Motion fails, no second. Let's move on. Is there any other business? Commissioner Phillips,
Thank you.
you don't mind sitting at the table, do you?
No, I don't.
Get it warm for you.
Thank you. Back in September, I approached the steering committee with some proposed updates to the chairman pro tem position. And realistically, I expected you guys to do something. But as far as I know, you haven't done anything. So that's what I'm asking you to do tonight, is to do something. If you need a copy of those proposed changes, I'd like to see these modifications be updated. There's I think, need for a better relationship, a better communication between the pro tem and the chairman, and some of these accomplish that, maybe not all of them, and I agree that these are bullet points for discussion, but I'd like to see some action taken on this proposal, and even taken before the full commission. And Mayor Ketron has worked with me as chairman pro tem, and setting some agenda items, reviewing agenda, and going over some minutes. And we've set aside some time, about a week before every commission meeting, to talk about topics that are going on within the county. And once again, this has been something that several commissioners have I think really wanted to do. Just in case something happened to the chairman pro tem to kind of jump in. I'm not saying that I know everything. As a matter of fact, I know probably just enough to get me in trouble. However, I've been around a long time. I'm 71 years old, and I was elected to the commission when I was 42. You do the math, okay? I've been around a long time, and there are a lot of things that I know, but there are a lot of things that I don't know in this changing world. And I'm speaking as the chairman pro tem right now. And the relationship that Mayor Ketron has gotten me involved in has been kind of enlightening to me, and that's what these things are intended, in my mind, to kind of make official. The chairman pro tem really doesn't have any duties spelled out per se in our handbook, and my recommendation is to take these or some of these and update our employee handbook. And I think all it would require would be a resolution to do so. So I apologize for this being brought up under other business, but this topic was talked about in September, and here it is, December. And if we're not going to do anything, you guys just tell me and I'll back off. But I know you expect me to do my job, and what I'm expecting from you is to do something. Whether it's you're crazy, we don't want to change it, or let's make some changes. So that's my discussion tonight. Once again, I'd like for you guys to do something.
Commissioner Phillips, we had a motion and it failed. So the way I'm for all these except the fourth one, and that is receive committee assignment request forms, present a recommendation for committee assignments to steering for consideration. I'm against that. I think that's the steering's job. It's been like that, and I think it should stay that way. But as me personally, I had no problem with any of the others. So there's any discussion on this,
If there's, I thought I reviewed all the minutes, and I didn't remember reading anything in the minutes about this being voted on. And if it was, I apologize. You guys have done your job, and I've not done mine. So,
I'll check that for you, but I'm pretty sure we voted on that.
I'm not sure we ever had a motion. I know we talked about it and went through, and that people had questions about each one, and I'm not sure we ever made it even a motion.
Well, you know what, I want to address this. So, since this is 6 things, I wanted to discuss each one, and then if there's a motion to approve it, then we'll approve it on there. And if there's any of them that we don't, I want to know that this is time-consuming, but I want to address this matter and to deal with it now. So the first thing on his list is member of each commission committee fill absences as needed, fill vacancies in case of long-term illness or other openings such as resignation, etc.
let me, if I could comment, since I'm at the table, the thought process here is that we went years and years and years without any absences on our commission, but here over the last few years, we've had multiple vacancies on the commission, and there was one commissioner who was assigned to the budget committee during budget process, and we were a commissioner short during that period of time, and I think it's important that committee, especially that committee, and others as well, but especially that committee during that process should not have been short a member. And that's what this is about. If we have a commissioner is on a long-term illness and is off some type of a leave for several months, or a commissioner resigns and it takes us several months to fill that position, the chairman pro tem, in my mind, should be an ex officio member of each committee and can fill in for a long-term absence. That's the thought process.
Real quick, looking at this,
Go ahead.
because this is bringing up memories when we talked about it months ago. So I think from a legal perspective, the ex officio member status would be acceptable. He would just be a non-voting member on the committee, and just like he's sitting up there now, that's how he would sit on them. I think TCA deals with covering vacancies of county commissioners, and county commissioners are appointed to the committees. And so I think that we could not conflict with state law in allowing the chairman pro tem to fill a vacancy on a committee that's absent. You have to go through the statutory procedures to fill that vacancy.
I'm talking about a temporary vacancy, Nick, until it could be filled with the permanent commissioner.
I could look in that. I haven't seen anything like that would allow us to obviate the TCA requirements to fill the county commission vacancy. But I'm happy to look to see if even on a temporary basis, until those statutory procedures are filled, if the chairman pro tem could be in there. Now, what you're making the chairman pro tem be in that scenario is a voting member, because they're filling a commissioner's seat who is sitting on a committee. Then that might confuse things for voting purposes. Does the vote count, et cetera?
It has interim. I read it today. That's why when you brought that up right there, I remember reading it, and they have it based upon interim. So I think it's in there, what you're talking about.
In the TCA?
Uh-huh. So they have that in there based on the Tennessee Code annotated.
And what does it say about interim that you remember seeing?
That is be to appointed by the commission.
As an interim?
As an interim.
Commissioner. I'm happy to look into the legalities of that.
I read, that's just strange. I read that today. I was looking for something else and I went across that, but I remember seeing that in there today.
So in other words, Commissioner Phillips, the county commission, by amending this, what you're saying is in the instance of a vacancy, the chairman pro tem shall be appointed as the interim commissioner. Is that the idea?
Pretty much, yes.
Now, I don't know if that
Look at it
gets
closer and see what-
confusing because you're already a county commissioner of another district.
A commissioner has to live in a district, so it can't be that.
Yeah.
Probably good if I look at that, and I'm not sure if I'll have an answer for you tomorrow, but I'll have you look at that.
Yeah, because that was basically, they'd be appointing somebody else totally.
But if he was in a non-voting, he can do that.
I think that the county commission can place any, well, not any person. I think it'd be okay to have a pro tem as an ex officio member on a standing committee, where he's not a voting member, he doesn't sit in a vacant commissioner seat. He's just like the mayor who just sits up there and can have input and be in tune with what's going on in the committee meetings.
That, once again, the thought process behind this was to fill vacancies that were short-term in nature. The timing of that resignation that we had a few years ago, it couldn't have been worse timing. Those of you that have been on the budget committee and served on the budget committee know that it's a lot of work that goes into that. And they were short a member, and just think about it, you guys. What better person to be on as a substitute on a committee than the chairman pro tem? That's the only thought process. And what I said in September, and I'll say it again now, okay? I am not a candidate for the pro tem position anymore. I'm not. But what I've been thinking about since I have been pro tem for a number of years is that pro tem position needs to be updated. It's ancient and it's old and it needs to be updated. And some of the duties that they have right now is not even in writing. This attempts to correct some of that, okay? And not only the chairman pro tem position, but there are others that this committee needs to look at too, other positions that maybe needs to be updated to a degree as well. So, once again, this is not a power grab, and I would challenge each of you that have known me for a number of years to think that it is, and it's not. But I'm just trying my best to look forward instead of looking back. And I think that as our county grows, the chairman pro tem position needs to be more involved in what goes on in the county than they have been in the past.
Well, here's the way I look at it. We can approve and go over each one of these and approve the ex officio until I get a okay from the county attorney. I don't think we should vote on that. I won't feel comfortable doing that. But these other ones, what I'd like to do, and I agree with Commissioner Phillips, we can address some of these now. Would that be fine with everyone? All right, let's start with the first one. We're going to defer that off till next month until we get a county attorney to explain to us the law on that. Let's go to the second one. It's review commission agenda presented by the chairman.
Didn't you say you were already doing that?
We've just started that. But the thing is that it's not
In writing?
Yeah.
I think that's, I have no problem with that.
Do we have a motion?
Second.
Second. All those in favor? Hold up, back up. I did
What's
mess
the
up.
motion to do?
Discussion.
Are we,
Motion to
Review commission.
a resolution to include these things. Now I'm doing it.
what's the resolution? Are we amending our commission handbook, or are we
Yes.
just passing a resolution? What
No,
are we doing?
we're amending the handbook.
Okay.
I would suggest that instead of taking them one at a time, you just take them all, and if there's one you want to pull out, just like we do in the consent agenda, just pull that one out, such as the looking at the committee assignment request forms.
Okay.
And once again, it's a thought, okay? And I agree, it's a steering committee's assignment to do that. But usually the chairman of the steering committee puts that list together. And I know other members of the steering committee also put their own list together, and they kind of compare what goes on there. But once again, the chairman pro tem should be in a position to where he or she can also look at those assignments. At least that's the thought. And it's not a big deal. It's not.
All right. I was trying to make this less confusing, but I think I've done the opposite. So, do we have a motion to send this discussion to the county commission to discuss upon the full commission?
We need some kind of recommendations then.
Well, I'm trying to figure out how to do that, Robert, with it, because I'm against one of them. And then,
Why don't y'all discuss which one chairman is not in favor of and see if there's a consensus with the rest of the body or not on that particular subject. That would get rid of that one, and then the other one's just subject to my legal review, the first one.
I think that's what I was trying to say. Take a look at them, and if there's one you want to pull out, pull it out.
all right,
Or more, one or more, I'm sorry.
So let me maybe speed this along. I think we're okay with review commission agenda presented by chairman. The next item is review commission minutes and present to commission. You've been doing that already. I think we're all okay. We can discuss that if you want. The next one I think is one that we may want to chat about.
Remove it.
Well, let's chat about it. Which is, go ahead, chairman, if you want to read it.
well, the other thing is that, I mean, that is the job of the steering committee and steering chairman. I mean, I don't have a problem with a steering chairman. I can only speak for myself. I personally talked to you when I did committees. So I had no problem. So let me ask you this. Are you saying that you had to approve it? Or are you just saying you're just in discussion with it?
I would say, I think with what the steering committee is elected every year, okay, and the makeup of that committee could change every year. I think that sometimes there's politics involved in committee assignments. I know when I was first elected to this, it was that way. And the first list that I put together was what everybody wanted, regardless of who needed to be on what committee and everything else. And that's the thought process that goes in there, okay? I just don't like us get in any kind of a, I almost said a four-letter word that I really don't need to. I don't think we ought to get into a disagreement over why people should be placed on a particular committee. I think when someone makes the recommendation, I want on this committee and this committee, that you don't have to go to the third or fourth or fifth to make a committee assignment. That's the way it's been the last number of years, and I agree with that. But if you look at the way other things are done, there are speakers of the House and other kinds of things that make recommendations for committee assignments, or maybe they even make them. And once again, this is the thought process in going forward, not in looking at the way things have been. What this thing says in my mind is that the chairman pro tem will take the committee assignments, put the chart together, the recommended chart together, give it to the steering committee chairman, and let them make the decision whether or not to accept it. That's
So
what.
you just simply saying advisory.
I wonder if you just said review with steering chairman before appointment?
You can pull it out. The thing has worked recently. It has.
I mean, I'm okay with that. Any more discussion on this topic?
So we're leaving it in?
Yes.
Okay.
Call newly elected appointed committees to order and elect chair and vice chair. Now, what this was is we had trouble on the last committees about the Open Meetings Act. When we change new committees and vote on vice chair and chairman, you're saying that you would officiate that?
I'd say that the chairman pro tem would, so that the chairman won't have to get out of his seat and leave that seat vacant.
I have no problem with anybody. None? All right. Discuss with county mayor and commission chair and county attorney any topic scheduled for an executive session.
Is that legal?
Yeah. Is that,
Yeah, so I sometimes will talk to individual commissioners anyway about cases. That's attorney-client privilege. it really gets confusing of when you have multiple officers involved, and so from a legal perspective, it's probably best not to have that in there. And then if the chairman pro tem, I'll be happy to give him a heads up in case it's something that we need to talk about in advance of a meeting, and just leave it at that. That's probably better.
Need to pull it.
I would pull it.
All right. So, gentlemen, to recap, the first one we are holding off on until county attorney gets back with us. And then the last one we are taking out. So do we have a motion to bring the other ones to the commission for recommendation? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Irvin.
So
Yes.
which ones again?
We're taking the first one out and the last one out.
Okay.
I have a question. Should we not just defer everything and do it all one time instead of amending the handbook and then amending the handbook again with the first one?
That would also be fine.
It's probably cleaner.
Yeah. So what do you want to do?
Well, I'm just saying if we pass these four and amend our handbook and put the new one on the website, and then we pass the next thing next month, we've got to put it on the website again. It just seems like extra work.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not comfortable voting on something that county attorney won't sign
Oh,
off
I
on.
agree. That's what I'm saying. Why just not do it all next month at one time after
Okay.
we've gotten our answer?
Well, we have a motion right
Make a
now.
motion to remove.
All right, so the motion's been
Make
rescinded.
a motion to table this conversation until county attorney has been able to answer our question regarding question of item number 1.
And do I have a second?
If y'all are inclined to do it, couldn't you pass it depending on the approval of county attorney? So it could go ahead and go before the county commission? You could do that, couldn't you, Nick?
They could do a motion to approve number 2, 3, 4, and 5 on this list, even though they're not numbered. Everybody sees the bullet points. So 2 through 5, and also approve 1, subject to county attorney approval. I think I'm giving you my approval that it's okay to have the chairman pro tem as an ex officio member. It's just a matter of him filling vacancies and having a vote if a county commissioner is temporarily absent. That would be, I need to look at.
So your only concern is whether it's a voting or non-voting?
Whether he can fill an actual seat temporarily, which would necessarily imply a vote. So that's why I'm thinking it's probably not okay to do, but I'd like to confirm that. So you want me to give you the language of the motion that I think would be proper?
Sure.
Might be helpful. So you're gonna, somebody should probably make a motion to approve numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, subject to the county attorney's approval of whether the chairman pro tem can fill a vacancy in case of a long-term illness or other openings such as a resignation.
Okay, right now I got a motion on the floor to defer till next
I'm
Monday.
going to rescind my motion to defer,
Commissioner Kusch rescinds, Commissioner Irvin rescinds.
and I'm going to create a new motion.
Okay.
If you will so allow me.
Yes, sir.
To approve items 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, subject to the county attorney's approval of the chairman pro tem to help me
Fill the vacancy
fill the vacancy and
in case of a long-term illness or other
or
openings.
illness. Yes, so moved.
Do I have a second? Second, Steve Urges. All those in favor say aye. Oh, no, time out, back up. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Is there any other business?
Thank you, Jim.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Let's roll call.
This meeting is adjourned.